The following is a paid program by the Whitley Law Firm. Welcome to Attorneys on Call, the program that gives you free legal information from the Whitley Law Firm. Now, here's your host, Drew Smith.
And thank you so much for joining us for this latest edition of Attorneys on Call. Over the next half hour, we'll be answering a lot of questions you may have about legal situations affecting you and your health, because the Whitley Law Firm has been representing people around the state of North Carolina for many decades now. People just like you and me that may have been injured in an automobile accident. People that may have been injured while working on the job, or you might have a Social Security disability claim that you're working on. So that's what the Whitley Law Firm does, and so feel free at any time during this program to call the 800 number, or if you have a question, you can always go to whitleylawfirm.com and ask your question right there. There's also free videos available on the website that you can see. Let's say you were injured in an automobile accident recently. You have a lot of questions about that. Should you file a claim? That's why the website is there, and you can get a lot of free information right there on the website. In studio, Bob Whitley and Ben Whitley of the Whitley Law Firm. Guys, it's always great to be with you. Good to see you.
Nice to be here. Good to be here.
Bob, you have been representing people that have been injured around the state since the 1970s. You also recently wrote a book about your experiences as an attorney representing people, and I was just curious, what was the inspiration, the motivation for you to write that book?
Well, Drew, there were several motivations. You know, one is, in the back of my mind, I'd always thought, boy, it would be nice to write a book, and, you know, you hear about bestsellers, and I kind of reconciled that I wasn't going to write a bestseller, but I was going to write a book about my adventure through life, the great experiences that I've had with different clients over the years, and in different trucking accidents, fires, run-of-the-mill automobile wrecks. And I even went back to my early years, back in the 70s and 80s, when I did everything. I was a criminal defense lawyer. I handled divorces. I did about anything. And one of my first jobs was with the Child Support Enforcement Program in Lenoir County. And that experience gave me a whole lot of trial experience that I would not have otherwise gotten. We were, back then, you didn't have DNA and some of these blood testing in paternity cases. So I was trying a lot of paternity cases in front of juries. And I think it gave me the courtroom experience and later the confidence to carry over in my work as a personal injury lawyer. And it also gave me the opportunity to devote that book to the memory of my parents. My dad was one of the hardest working people, if not the hardest working person I've ever known. And he taught me some very simple principles, and not many, but one was to work as hard as you could, and that carries over with what we do, because in each one of our cases and clients, we need to give them our best shot and just leave no stone unturned. And the other thing he taught me was to be honest and good with people. So they've carried over well. So I guess that's the reason or reasons that I wrote the book.
You know, I've read the book. It is free to the public. You can get the book free just by calling to the Whitley Law Firm. And it's a great read because you do tell stories about your experience, and there's a lot of just helpful information, even for people that don't have a claim, but they could still benefit from this book. What's some of the feedback that you've gotten?
Well, I have gotten right much feedback. One of my classmates, high school classmates, told me after they read it, they really dread getting on the interstate and in front of a tractor trailer because of what we learned.
Yeah.
Or you know, it's engineering that I've kind of learned over the years from accident reconstruction, and about the fact, and we've talked about it often on the show, about when you're traveling 60 miles an hour, you're traveling 90 feet a second, and you have perception time and reaction time. Anyway, I tried to mingle in with those stories helpful information. And I, you know, Drew, recently I've had two different occasions where families were kind of searching for lawyers. And you know, sometimes you know when they come to see you, they're there to hire you, which I think everybody should be when they come to see me. But, you know, sometimes people are looking there's so many lawyers. And I found that by giving them a copy of my book. And I tell them, I says, if you read that book, you're going to learn more about me than you could ever learn in an interview or on the website or the web page. And and more importantly, you learn about a lot of wonderful people whose paths I've crossed, my clients. And some of the stories are extremely sad, some are more celebratory, but I think you do learn about the way I look at practicing law and how to deal with people, our clients, and even deal with insurance companies and those bad people on the other side.
And you can call the 800 number to get a free copy of the book. Ben, what did you learn from reading your dad's book?
Well, I liked seeing myself in there. I think there was a section in which he talks about hearing me argue with adjusters and feeling, pride that he's taught me. And we're battling these insurance companies, and it was fun for me to read the book because I've heard these stories about these cases, around the dinner table and growing up. So seeing them on paper and being excited that other people can share in those stories was good for me. But also the book's got a lot of practical information. So I think that if you've got a case that you don't know if you need a lawyer, or you're interviewing lawyers and you just are overwhelmed with all the information that's coming at you that you can find online, getting a free copy of the book is a great opportunity to get to know Bob and understand the firm that he's built and kind of his principles. Because as he said, I don't think there's any other way to learn more about him and our experience than through stories and narratives. And the book also has very practical advice about if you have a car accident claim or even if you have a workers' compensation claim. So I would encourage anyone, it's free, we'll send it to you. I'll even get Bob to sign your copy of it.
Okay.
You just give us a call and request that book. You can also go on the website, which the web address is on the bottom of the screen. And when you go to the website, there is a button right on the home screen about requesting your free copy of the book. So you don't even have to call. You can go online and request your copy there.
Bob, you mentioned this just a minute ago. There are a lot of attorneys in the state, and people have choices. When they come to you, you've always told me over the years how you look at that as such a privilege because it's a relationship that you're getting into with this person, and it has to be a very two-way trusting relationship.
Well, and one of the things that I have realized over the years, Drew, when a person who's been involved in a tragic accident or a family member, whether it's a death claim or just a serious injury, and they come to see me, I think one thing I've got to remind myself, this is probably the first time they've ever been in a lawyer's office. And whether they've had misconceptions or accurate information about lawyers, I think we as lawyers need to remind ourselves of that. We need to be polite. We need to be respectful. We don't need to get on any pedestals and impress them with what law we know by using complicated words and things like that. So I do look at it, every client that comes to see me, I think, deserves to be treated the same way I would want to be treated in a similar situation. And I think because we do it all day, every day, and that we know the insurance law and we know how the insurance companies will work against you to pay you less money, we sometimes take that for granted that everybody knows that, and they don't. So we need to remind ourselves and be humble when we meet with prospective clients.
Ben, when people initially call the firm and they have a possible claim and you have that first discussion with them, what is that like for you? And tell me about how you are able to communicate with the person because, as Bob said, a lot of times people have been either a loved one or themselves seriously injured in an automobile accident. They're probably being inundated with mail, with calls from insurance adjusters, and it's probably it's a pretty scary situation.
It is, and I met with a family very recently, and this couple, they had been married for a long time, over 30 years, and were just getting ready to sell their house, and they had purchased an RV and were planning kind of a retirement trips, and he was in a very bad accident and both broken legs and in traction and in the hospital. And she knew that his health was the most important thing. She was at the hospital by his side. But during that stress, she also was very worried about the medical bills, what happened in the wreck. The facts were a little different. So she got us involved, and I could tell when talking to her, it still seemed like this was uncomfortable because she really just wanted to be there to help him, but she knew that she needed to get an attorney involved in it. So, and in meeting with the family, I find that people, when they first call us, they first contact us, and they're in the middle of stress, a lot of times it's a very stressful situation. And sometimes the very first thing that they're thinking about or they ask me about are these medical bills. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills. And they're worried about how their health insurance were to pay that. So I think we recognize that we recognize that people are under stress and they're calling us, and one of the main things that they're asking for is some peace of mind, that they can get somebody in to help them with that. But I see that a lot, and it is often the right decision, especially in serious injury cases, to get lawyers involved quickly, even though that may seem uncomfortable. You kind of think, well, let me just get the medical situation stabilized, and then I'll get a lawyer involved next month. I just can't deal with this right now. And the reason is that if in a big case, the insurance company and their lawyers, they're starting their case on the very first minute they find out about it.
Sure.
They're building that case against you on day one. And so, as uncomfortable as it may seem to have to get a lawyer involved that quickly, it's important because you need to have the same resources to deal with that situation.
And we'll talk about that in the next segment, the 5 reasons why you do need an attorney,
Right.
And how important that is. Bob, back to the book for a second, because I know that some of the stories you tell about working on a tobacco farm as a young guy, and the lessons that your dad taught you about work ethic, you carry that through in your practice, I know, and I know people probably see that, but is it something where you have decided that, because of the lessons that you learned as a young man about work ethic, that you've just said, I'm just going to work tooth and nail for every client that I have?
I think that's exactly what happened, Drew. And in fact, one of the early cases I had as a young lawyer, I was up against a real accomplished, experienced attorney on the other side, and we had tough facts. It was almost impossible in the beginning. And I kind of learned then you don't have to be necessarily the smartest, most experienced lawyer if you'll work like heck on the case. And that's exactly what we did. Now that I'm older, I can be both. I can be the smartest and the hardest working. But it did in that particular case, and in all of my early cases. We fought real hard in that child support program to have the statute of limitations declared unconstitutional. There used to be a 3-year statute of limitations to bring a paternity case.
Okay.
So if the kid turned 4 or over 3, he would never have a legal father. He always had a biological father.
Right.
So we got that overturned with just some hard work. And again, I wasn't convinced you had to be the smartest lawyer, but you just had to work really hard.
And once again, you can get that book free by calling the 800 number on your screen. And as Ben had mentioned also, just by going to whitleylawfirm.com, bottom of the screen there, you'll see a button that you can click to get your free copy of the book. Back with more Attorneys on Call right after this.